All right. Well, welcome everyone to our YouTube Live AMA.
Thanks, Adiola.
My name is Adiola, and I'm the head of marketing here for OST, and we're really excited to have everyone join. I'm joined here by Jason, our CEO and co-founder, and Ben, our chief blockchain technologist, and also our co-founder. We'll be running through some of the questions that have been shared with us from our community, obviously from the subreddit as well, and of course through YouTube. So please do send those in through live chat, as we'll try to get through those as much as we possibly can. The AMA today will run us approximately 1 hour, but if we're having fun, we'll try to go a little bit longer. If we don't get through all of your questions today, we'll absolutely be sure to try to address those in a Medium post afterwards. So we'll have the full transcript and go through any questions that we can't get through today. All right, onwards. I'll just have you kick it off for us, Jason.
Sure.
Just tell us how things have been going. Just a quick short update about OST.
Yeah, well, first, thank you to everyone who's tuning in live right now on YouTube. Thanks to the community who put in so many great questions on Reddit, and 10,000 of you who've been participating in our Telegram channel. We couldn't do this without you, and we're incredibly thankful for your support and enthusiasm for the project. We're going to try to answer everything you throw at us today, and if we don't get it to today, we'll do another one, another one, another one. We're all in this together for the long term as we build some great technology and solutions together. I want to say a special thank you to Adiola, who's one of the newest members of the OST team, joined us to lead marketing, and marketing is an area where everyone can expect us to have a much bigger focus going forward as we start to really tell the story behind the amazing technology that we're building at OST. On the technology side, Ben and I have been working together from day one of OST, Simple Token. Ben is by far the smartest, most ingenious person I know in the blockchain space, and I think I'm really excited for the world to get to know Ben better, and especially for the world to start to get us to understand the ideas that Ben's been putting forth in terms of where we take OST and our technology as we start to really build this big vision that we have. To put in perspective kind of where we're at on this journey, first of all, for those who are new to OST, OST stands for Open Simple Token. We began on this journey about 2 years ago when we looked at cryptocurrencies and tokenization when it came to building a way to monetize an app called Peepo. And we looked at how could we use cryptocurrency tokenization inside of an app to basically to rely less on the big guys, less on Facebook, Google, Apple for growth, engagement, and monetization, and build a full economy within an app. And we found really quickly was that doing that's really, really hard. The blockchain technology was not there yet for individual apps to just go and build their own tokens, their own cryptocurrencies. That holding an ICO is very, very complicated, expensive, has all sorts of legal and regulatory headaches involved with it. And this started to form the ideas behind Simple Token. And the idea was, rather than every company having to build all this technology themselves, having to do the full stack, everything from the protocol layer to middleware to app layer, that just as in any kind of development and evolution of software, there should be providers who make the tools, who make the infrastructure to enable companies to launch these solutions and to basically focus on their business rather than focusing on the underlying infrastructure technology. And that was basically, a year ago, we decided to go for this. And a year ago, we decided to say, this is a huge vision we have here to be the essential fabric for the decentralized internet, to build this complete blockchain toolkit for business. And let's go and, create the Simple Token project. 6 months later, and 6 months to tomorrow, actually, we ended our ICO. So today is the 1 year basically anniversary of kind of like the let's go and build Simple Token. And the 6 month anniversary since the ending of our ICO is tomorrow. And so within 6 months since we ended the ICO, and what we've been focused on since then, one is, first of all, I'll say there's a lot of hype in the blockchain space and cryptocurrency space. And we, unapologetically have been very much focused on build real solutions, our number one KPI at OST is not, how many people bought the token this week. It's not the price of the token. Our number one KPI is 50 solid customer success stories, meaning really functional token economies. And we say if we can get 50 highly functioning token economies, that's a proof point for us to build on for, for a long, long time. And so that's what we've been focused on. And the focus over the last 6 months has been in 4 areas. And I'll turn to Ben to kind of talk through some of it. But basically, the last 6 months, we've been focused on 4 things. Number 1 is team. When we ended our ICO, we had a software development team who had a lot of experience in web development and application development. And we had a burgeoning blockchain technology science team that Ben was leading. We were about 24, 25 people, and mostly on the engineering side. Since the ICO, we've now grown the team to over 50 people, covering all facets of the business. And all facets of the business, including commercial aspects of the business. So we have teams in Hong Kong, New York, Berlin, and India. And we're focused not just on building the solutions, but also in signing up partners and companies to work with us on those solutions. So number 1 has been the team, so getting the team in place. Number 2 has been the technology. And Ben will walk through kind of what we've been working on the technology and the very big vision that we have regarding technology. Number 3 has been on the partner side. And one of the things that we're really proud of when it comes to OST is that we've been building with our partners and announcing real partnerships and working with partners to build on technology. And this is a critical component of our solution set. Blockchain technology is in the very early days today, and it's going to take a very long time for some of it to emerge. I mean, even the things that our customers start to use in the next few months will still be many, many years in development as they get more and more perfected and add more and more features and capabilities. And I'll talk through the longer term roadmap in a bit as well. But building with partners has been an essential part of our strategy from the very beginning, so that we're not building in a vacuum. You may have seen that we've announced about 30 partners. There's others that we haven't announced yet. Some of the larger partners that we've announced are companies like Unsplash, which has over 5 billion photo views per month. We announced last week a partnership with FinCom Echo to do some amazing work on a token in Africa. We got some other great partnerships lined up as well. But with each of these partners that we've announced, the first step is working with them on technology, working with them on integration, working on planning a token economy. And that's the same thing that we're doing publicly right now. We're in our alpha phase 2, where we've had 250 development teams apply to be part of alpha phase 2. 142 teams were selected, and 85 of them have basically met the first hurdle, and looks like they're also meeting the second hurdle to submit a POC integration with alpha 2 of the OST solution. And we'll talk more about where we're going in alpha 3 and beyond. But building with this partner feedback is a critical component of our strategy. And our plan is to have thousands of development teams building on and helping us build OST rather than us building in a vacuum, which speaks to the fourth point. So team, technology, partners. Number 4 is community. And the fourth kind of leg of our stool in building our strategy is to build with the community. And we're very thankful, as I said at the beginning, for our community support and for pushing us and to continue to ask great questions. But we can't do this alone. We need your help. We need the community support. And it is an area that we are pledging to do much more of in the future, is to come back to the community and involve the community more, have a larger presence and role with the community. We're going to be doing more blockchain and Ethereum meetups and meetings. We're doing this AMA today. We're doing one next week in New York with BetaWorks, which we just announced. You can expect a lot more seeing OST out there with the community as we move more and more towards customers and companies using our solutions.
Wonderful. I think that's pretty much a lot that you've covered there in terms of an overview of the big picture. For all of that, because you're going to put together kind of the 4 main areas, what's been the biggest challenge so far in terms of the overall project? Yeah,
I'll say from the business standpoint and then from the technology perspective. I mean, I'd say we've had this kind of I'd say a couple things. So I said the first is we want to be kind of a solid project and kind of really stand out in terms of proving results versus just hype. And so for us, the market, is a very speculative market in crypto, and there's a lot of folks pushing to say to get the price up, and that's not our focus. The OST token is a utility token that is used to stake against minting branded tokens. It's a token that we think thousands of companies will use and have utility from. And our focus is build that solution and make it useful. And I think so one of the kind of struggles is to kind of how do you kind of stay focused on kind of get it done when the market forces are saying scream louder. And then I think the other is just it's also that kind of balance between the here and now and a massive vision that we have. I mean, we have this massive vision, which we'll talk about during this AMA, to build the essential fabric for the decentralized internet. And it's a really big vision, and it has many, many phases and components over the next 5-7 years. And we purposely haven't gone out there and thrown out, here's OST is going to be in 2022 or 2023 or 2025, because we also want to sign up companies and customers and partners to work with us right now to build the near term. And so it's striking that right balance between we are a blockchain company that is actually working on real things right now, and then also telling the story of where we're going with the roadmap for the future. And admittedly, we've been the message we've had so far has been very focused on OST right now, complete blockchain toolkit for business. We're building this 2018, 2019, and we're excited to start telling kind of the broader kind of arc where that story is going out in the distance in the future.
Wonderful. I guess I'll ask the same question to you, Ben. From a tech perspective, what's been the biggest challenge for you?
So building the shit that I started.
Yeah, so that sums it up. But part of that, exactly that vision, right? There's this very promising, what we call Web3 technology, where you regain ownership of your data and specifically your tokens. And the question is, if we want to scale this to millions and potentially billions of people, we really have to understand deeply the problems that we need to solve. Because scaling is often understood in sort of a transactions per second number that we need to push up, but it is also user adoption and other problems that we really need to understand. And so the biggest technical challenge is really trying to understand the problems that we need to solve in order to enable scaling, because it's a set of problems that need to be solved. And then very much in line on a day-to-day business is we started out with a very strong web team, and then came with a blockchain team, and merged these two companies. And just you face the same question, right? If our main hypothesis is connecting the existing digital platforms with Web3 technology, also the development cycle is entirely different, because on the web development cycle, you can do agile development. On the smart contract cycle, you effectively need to launch a smart contract into space, and you can never touch it again. And so those two need to go together. And so building out the roadmap has been a huge challenge of building out sort of that gradual launching smaller and smaller satellites into Ethereum blockchains space, I guess, that we can not touch anymore. And so that's really building those processes with the team is one of the most interesting things, I think.
Yeah. I'm sure we'll get into a lot of the details. Why don't we answer some questions?
Yeah, and I think there's actually a question on YouTube saying, are these questions live? They are, so please submit your live questions to YouTube.
We're here.
We actually got one earlier from Derek Urso, and he was asking, would we say our value proposition is creating tools for a market we anticipate explosive growth in? So how do we think about creating our tools for the market?
Yeah, I think you're building on what Ben said, is that, look, we think that we're moving to a world, call it centralized internet, we call it Web 3.0, where transactions are happening between parties in a centralized way, in a trustless way, and that so much of transactions that go through intermediaries today are going to happen in the future this way, and it's going to be both transactions between individuals and companies, and machines. And there's a whole lot of technology that's being built between here and there. And what we've been focused on at OST is we see where this is going. Like, we see this as it's a 5, 10, 15, 20-year vision. And we want to participate in making it happen, and then also be there when the kind of adoption gets to this place, which is hard to actually, you could say, well, we'll build something in 5 years from now when the world gets there, we'll be there. And we've been saying, no, the way that we're going to build it and know that we're building it right is to build with companies. And so, one of our kind of, purposeful actions or kind of strategies is not just work with dApps, so with decentralized applications, and build the Web 3.0 apps now for the future, but to work with mainstream companies, with millions and billions of transaction volume and user interactions, and help them move those transactions onto the blockchain. And as Ben was saying, that's going to require, it has a lot of complications to it, but they're really interesting problems to solve.
Perfect. All right. I will continue to request if people can send in more questions to YouTube. We will definitely try to answer them. One question that was actually submitted through our community was kind of around the product roadmap. So I guess a question for both of you guys. Share more details about the product roadmap. What are we thinking about for the rest of 2018 and the bigger vision for OST?
Yeah. So I'll start and hand to you.
Sure. Yeah.
So look, as I said a couple of times, we have a very big vision in terms of being kind of the essential fabric for the centralized internet. And so we see like a world where, let's say 5 years from now, much of the transactions today that go through central authorities are basically happening in a decentralized manner. And a lot needs to happen to get between here and there. And the pieces that we've been putting in place in the roadmap are as follows, and will be kind of as follows. So the first thing that we did was the OpenST protocol. And the OpenST protocol was to say, if a company wanted to launch their own tokens, the OpenST protocol enables them to stake OST on Ethereum mainnet against minting their own tokens on open scalable sidechains. And so the invention here was to take, basically first make it's kind of a usability innovation as well as a scalability innovation to help take basically mainstream companies to be able to launch their own tokens without having to build everything themselves, and to also move kind of the high volume, high throughput kind of traffic off of public Ethereum and onto side blockchains, but still retain all the properties of public Ethereum in terms of immutability and accountability of those transactions. At the same time, concurrently, we started building the OST layer, which is like a software layer, which is a set of software APIs and SaaS to enable companies to manage and integrate these basically OpenST and its benefits and branded tokens into their businesses. And then where we're going with that next is a series of kind of phases. The next phase, which we're actually working on now, which is called Mosaic, is all about scalability and economic finality on a fully decentralized manner. And I'm going to turn to Ben in a second so you can talk through exactly what what Mosaic is. But even beyond Mosaic, kind of where we're going, even beyond Mosaic, is in the fourth phase, which is not exactly linear. We'll be working on this kind of, while we're working on Mosaic, some folks will also be working on this next phase, is how do you actually enable exchanges of branded tokens? So let's say if you earn an Unsplash token, how do you not just exchange it with someone else within Unsplash, but also exchange it across the OST network, then across anywhere that's Ethereum enabled, so any other Ethereum token, and then eventually atomic swaps across any crypto or any asset for that matter, right? And that's really interesting stuff that we're thinking about for the future. And then after that, it's how do you enable via AI, via machines to do this, right? And to do it so in an intelligent way, so that it's not just humans to humans interacting across from these side chains to other cryptos. And so there's a lot of components going into this. I'm probably making Ben very nervous because it's a very big vision. But Ben, why don't you, because we've had this question a number of times, why don't you explain to everyone what Mosaic is and what our team is working on right now when it comes to Mosaic?
Yeah, so I can drill down on the roadmap so far, and we're working on and going in the near term. And so we had a few releases, right? We had 090 before the ICO, which was a proof of concept that we integrated into People app. And then we released 091, which really was centered around this concept and introducing this concept of staking and minting. And so why we use those two verbs is because there's two independent systems running. One is the staking, where all the value is defined on Ethereum mainnet, and then the minting is for a company to use that value that is backing its new branded token and using it as a white label token, OST, to create its own in-application experience. And then we released 092, and where we focused there was really on the token rules. So the early economic behaviors that the company could define that would make this token its own token. So that the token really had the behaviors that the application designer wants, and so that you really can look to build a token economy that's unique. And then with 093, what we're working on right now is making OpenST a complete protocol. So the current sprint, we've been a bit more silent about it, but it's a very technical sprint. We're making improving and completing the protocol so that, and this is a unique contribution that, that doesn't exist, so that you can actually transpose the value of those tokens without anyone else participating. So you as a user or company can generate all the proofs that you need to present to either auxiliary system, the utility chain or the value chain, to stake and mint or redeem and unstake your tokens. Also as an end user, you can, independently of the company, independently of OST, always stake the value that you have in branded tokens and take it back to Ethereum to have the OST that backed it up. And so it's a very crucial fundamental stone that we needed, is that the protocol functions without the ability for anyone else to block the user's ability to regain the value that he had that was backing the OST originally. So that's what we're working on right now. It involves all sorts of things with Merkle proofs and making them efficient, and committing state roots of the other chain on the first chain. And this is also where Mosaic comes in. So we'll be working on Mosaic starting from now. So what 093 allows us to do is to start building Mosaic, and I'll keep that, I'll detail that in a second, and start building that in parallel, right? Because this is a proof of stake system, and as people who are aware of the space know, this is all still to be tested, and we also expect this to be running in parallel with the production system for say, I mean, when companies feel comfortable to transition over, they can do so. But the important part for us is that we have a runway where Mosaic runs in parallel, and that's with the production system, and we can assert that it works well, and we can build up an open set of validators that have a stake into the system. And so that's what 093 also enables. And then very briefly, just taking a step back. So what are the problems that we want to solve, right? We touched on that we want to connect existing user platforms with token technology, cryptographically defined tokens on Ethereum mainnet. And so there's three core problems that we identify on the protocol level that have to be addressed. One is scaling Ethereum, and scaling here in the traditional sense of how do you make sure that you don't bloat Ethereum, that you have enough transaction throughput, that you have economic finality of the transactions mined. But there's also two other very important problems. One is user friendliness of the wallet, of cryptographic tokens. If we want to scale this to millions and billions of people, we need to be able to give them tokens without them first learning what is cryptography, what is Ethereum, how do I manage my key. And so that's a piece of work that we call token holder contracts. The simple trick that we do is we have smart contracts that the user owns, but that allow much better user experience when handling his own crypto within the application, so that you don't have to start managing crypto tokens for all the applications that you might have. Cryptographic keys for all the applications that you might have, but rather you have one wallet that allows you to manage all the contracts that you have that have the tokens for you. And so that eases the user experience quite a lot. And so that's where we're working on 094. And very interestingly, also that work will allow our partner companies to build their own smart contracts and build their own additional logic on top of OST beyond what we provide out of the box. So I'm looking very much forward to that. But then the big piece is also Mosaic, right? So the question is, how do we make sure that we can actually execute the transactions of all those partner companies while not bloating Ethereum or creating a bottleneck? I'll I'll not go into a rabbit hole, but people will probably have heard that there's a lot of work that has gone into proof of stake systems. There are projects, very interesting ones, that try to build proof of stake as a new chain. Then Ethereum itself puts work into a hybrid roadmap towards moving Ethereum from proof of work towards proof of stake. And what we do with Mosaic is we take all those learnings and we take it one step further, and we explicitly also solve for the problem at hand. We take Ethereum for granted, but then we use proof of stake to finalize and secure these auxiliary systems. And what that effectively does is that Ethereum is fully verifiable. All tokens are only defined on Ethereum. So a full new node on Ethereum can see that everything happened correctly, but the full node doesn't have to verify the specifics of an application that happens on this auxiliary system. However, if you have a stake and an interest in that application, you can verify Ethereum mainnet and you can run a full node for that auxiliary system. And that is what the Mosaic node will do. And then you can, it's also an open system, so you can run that node and participate into the staking game where you define and get rewards in OST for participating in the economic finality of what has happened on the auxiliary.
So let me let you take a breath for a second. So we actually had a lot of questions came in on Reddit and Telegram and elsewhere before asking about, so how does this work in terms of, you know, if people want to be sealers, and could they earn money through the system? So how does that economic finality happen? And what are the roles that people play?
So yes, it's an open system. And so this was an important conundrum also to solve, right? Because on the one hand, you want, but this is a bit of a diversion, but I'll start it. On the one hand, you want to have a very performant blockchain backend that has a high availability. So actually using a POS system with highly available nodes, high performant nodes benefits you. But then that's a closed system, and that doesn't solve the core problem. And so what we do is Mosaic is a layer 2 network, but it's specifically a layer 2 network that connects Ethereum mainnet. And so, sorry, for what people, just a quick definition, people often refer to layer 2 solutions that build logic on top of Ethereum in this case now. And so in the list are state channels, Plasma, TrueBit. I hope I don't forget important names, but those are what people think of as layer 2 solutions, and Mosaic fits in that category. And specifically, as I said, we build a proof of stake system that has a stake defined on Ethereum mainnet, and also the rewards are then rewarded in OST for those stakers on Ethereum mainnet for the work that they've effectively done on the auxiliary systems. And the reward is specifically a cut in the gas price that has, or the transaction fees that have been paid for the amount of gas that has been consumed on utility chains. That is all summed up and then rewarded to the sealers of Mosaic.
Wonderful. And I'm seeing that we have some questions around this from the YouTube Live connection and chat that's coming in, but we also saw this on our subreddit. Now that we kind of have a better picture of the product roadmap, what are the timelines that we're thinking about in terms of transitioning from alpha to beta? You know, when are we going to be on mainnet?
Well, I'll start then. So alpha and beta are terms and loosely defined. I mean, we declared alpha being kind of a multi-stage user input phase where we're still running at this stage of alpha on testnet, and we're building up the feature set both at the protocol layer as well as middleware and SaaS with our customers together and getting feedback. We're going to have several series of alphas, but we're also going to be moving to mainnet fairly soon as well, because we need the entire OST premise runs on there being a value of the OST that's staked, and right now we're working with OST alpha, which is kind of fake OST. And we need to start working with real OST being in the stake. And so the plan is to move to mainnet fairly soon. So maybe I can speak to that.
Yeah, so I ran over the roadmap just a second ago, right? So if we're at building 093 now, 094 really focuses on two things: the token holder contracts that allow the users to own the tokens in a full Web3 sense, while still enabling applications to easily integrate them without needing to that's something. But also protocol upgrades, and so that's an important feature that we want to get right before we move to mainnet, because on testnet it's easier. I mean, it's a testnet, but on mainnet we want to have the protocol upgrade version and the governance better better worked out and implemented. So that's in 0.94, and then for 0.95, at the platform level, we want to do two things. We want to work on the multi-chain aspect. So right now we just use one utility chain, improve the code there that it can be any number of utility chains with some constraints. And also move these auxiliary systems, these utility chains that carry the burden of computation away from Ethereum mainnet, make them proof of stake systems. Right now, for testing purposes, we're running them on proof of authority. The elegant part about Mosaic is that it's agnostic about what system it runs on, given some constraints again or assumptions that need to be true. But moving to mainnet, we want to also move the auxiliary systems to more robust POS, proof of stake systems as layer one.
So a lot of people jump from that to asking, so when will customers be going live? And what the distinction we want to draw out is that there's a number of features that are being built over a long period of time at the protocol level, at the middleware level, at the SaaS, and even at the consumer level, right? And a lot of it will be about when a certain project or company wants to jump on board. So when they think that the feature set that's there at that moment in time is enough for them to want to launch their end users. And we're working with companies from so many different diverse backgrounds that some of them are already saying to us, hey, we'd like to be live right now, and we can build all this and this and this and handle this. And others are like, well, we have tens of millions of users, and we need this and this and this before we can launch them. And so there's no one answer to when will customers go live, but we will be on mainnet sooner versus later, and then we will start working on the right customers deploying at the right time, and then building with more customers and more POCs and more alphas based on user input.
Wonderful. We've actually kind of transitioned to another question that we had in terms of the alphas.
Yeah.
So we just ended alpha phase 2. There's talk about alpha phase 3. What is it? What's going to be involved in that challenge?
So alpha 2, for those who are not familiar, so we had a 6-week alpha 2 program that ran over basically the last 6 weeks. It ended last week. And before that, alpha 1 was the first kind of version that customers were able to touch and really help us with stress testing and the first kind of staking and minting and creating branded tokens. In alpha 2, we provided APIs for anyone to integrate branded tokens into their existing application. And the challenge with alpha 2 that we gave to developers around the world was proven integration of branded tokens using OST. So do a stake and mint and then run transactions on the side chains and integrate that into your app. So you have app events in your app or on your website that trigger token transfers on the side chain. Do that, and that's the challenge of kind of alpha 2. And as I said before, we had about 85 kind of projects that have submitted. We're at 60 something as of now, but we're expecting by the end of this week. There's some that needed some extra time because of our API updates last week, and we granted them until the end of this week to do it. But we think about 85 teams will have submitted alpha 2 submissions, and our plan is June 11th to showcase and announce everyone who completed it and to put together kind of a video showcase of all the projects. Then shortly after that, we'll roll into alpha 3. And there'll be a number of kind of feature additions in alpha 3. There'll be some kind of twists in terms of how we run the challenge. But the big thing to look forward to at this point, in addition to ongoing developments on the protocol with different APIs and updates and SDKs, is that we'll also, the big kind of feature element for alpha 3 is the first consumer wallet API. And so this will enable for the first time that in an integration of OST, that you'll actually be able to have individual users and look at individual wallets and to see the token transfers in those wallets, not just see a macro view of the token transfers either in OST Kit or on OST View.
Perfect.
Anything to add on that, Ben? Or
yeah, so that so you people will notice that goes hand in hand with the token holder contracts, right? Yeah. So while this is not yet the standalone wallet, it's the first step to building that. And then at the protocol layer, we're building the token holder contracts.
Yeah, and so what everyone can expect is that we will do more and more of these. And today it's Alpha 2, then Alpha 3, Alpha 4, and whether we call it Alpha or Beta, just expect that we're going to be working with hundreds and thousands of development teams around the world, ranging from 1 or 2 people in a garage to massive corporations, and gathering their input and feedback by real integration as we build this.
Sure. All right, I'm going to go back to the questions on YouTube for those who have been submitted.
Hi, YouTube. Thanks.
There's been a lot of chatter around this question from Kefra, and it's around kind of being able to swap out your branded token.
Yeah.
Why, as a customer, would I want to allow atomic swaps or swapping around your token for interoperability? If I use my branded token as a loyalty coin, it's because I want repeat customers. Allowing trades works against this, and my customer may use them elsewhere. So why would we want them to use them elsewhere?
Yeah, so I think, one is to draw a distinction between kind of the historical kind of black box loyalty programs that I think most people are familiar with in terms of, let's say, airline reward programs or, let's say, like hotel programs, that sort of stuff, where there is, you earn these points, but they decide how many points you earn. They can change the rules on you at any moment in time. There's no transparency as to how much those points are worth. And if it's entirely kind of decided by the central authority how much, first of all, whether you can spend the points. Airlines, let's say you can't buy a reward ticket for this flight, and then also how much it costs to use them. And what we see with the decentralized internet and with cryptocurrency is that a very simple kind of principle is that if it's yours, you own it, and you can do whatever you want with it. And that is going to open up all sorts of new possibilities when you have someone owns the currency. They earned it, they own it, and it's up to them to decide whether they want to spend it within your economy or to spend it elsewhere. Now, that's not to say that companies might not set up rules for how they want to operate with other companies. And so there might be various layers, let's say, of convenience kind of factors, where if you as an individual want to unstake your branded token and spend it somewhere else, you might have to go through a process of first taking, let's say, your Unsplash token, unstaking it, getting OST going and converting it to something else. There might be providers who offer convenience by offering a wallet which allows you to do that, and kind of exchange or kind of an atomic swap allows you to do that. But you can expect that that's opportunities where there could be transaction fees or commissions taking place. That the free market will help determine this, as well as companies will in some ways protect some of their interests. I think it's I guess what the biggest thing I have to say to everyone is kind of keep an open mind about it, and also expect that there will be more and more decentralization. There will be more and more individual ownership of their stuff, their things, and that it's like, it's a train that's coming, and we all have to figure out how to kind of play well within that. And I think just as with a lot of technology innovations that provide power back to the users, that kind of open up more customer benefits. Companies that take a lead, that provide better customer experiences, better customer service, tend to gain competitive advantages. One second most valuable company in the world is Amazon. And Amazon's always led by provide the absolute best customer service. Take a return no matter what, even if they lose money on it, because over the long term you win with your customers. And I think companies that kind of look very farsighted and kind of look very customer first like that will say, okay, yeah, forget about the old way of doing loyalty programs. If we allow ourselves to be part of, you earn it, you own it, and we allow ourselves to be part of a broader ecosystem, and we figure out nice ways to play with other companies, and we prove that there's reasons why people should earn within our system and spend within our system, or if someone wants to take the token out and spend it elsewhere, we make it easy for them, and maybe we take a cut of it, that if we play well within that, that's a huge opportunity to take a leadership position in the next generation of commerce.
Great. Another kind of corollary question, if we take it almost a step back, is just the concept of tokenization. So this came in actually from our subreddit from OST is Love, great name, by the way. With an OST kit, it is easy to launch a token, but why should I do it? Could you sum up what is so great about for a company, app, or community to use a token?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. I mean, the word token in history is symbolic of ownership. It's symbolic of kind of wealth, or and what the tokenize the world concept when it comes to companies and apps and businesses and web services. A lot of it comes to thinking about kind of this, like, how could you incentivize and motivate your users or reward your users for taking certain actions that benefit your overall ecosystem and your economy. How do you also use a token to monetize otherwise hard to monetize transactions, especially when you talk about micropayments or micro transfers between individuals? So if you do something small, like you like something, or you upvote something, or you submit a photo, if you were to transfer, let's say, a couple pennies to someone in real fiat, the transaction fee would be too high. And so how do you do things like that and enable people to accumulate that over time by doing a lot of these little actions? You contribute to the community, but you also are able to make some money from it. And a big part of it is allowing companies to create kind of a full cycle economy where you have people who are earning the token, people who are buying the token, ways to spend the token, and then creating these loops that keeps the economy flowing within your marketplace. And that all comes down to, if you've got this kind of velocity going on, this within your economy, your ecosystem, that creates stickiness and creates engagement, and it allows also companies to, as I said before, to rely less on the big guys, Facebook, Google, for customer acquisition. Simply put, if you can motivate your users, say by giving them $2 or $3 as an incentive for taking action that benefits your economy, most companies would rather do that than spend $10 to acquire a user on Facebook. So give the user $2 or $3 and pocket the rest to invest in your technology and your product. And so that's there's the value of tokenization. We look at it as build an economy where you're less reliant on external forces, that you have the ecosystem, the community that is brand loyal to you, is transacting with you both on the buy side and the sell side. They enable people to earn through motivating certain actions. And if you do that and do it with your brand, so it continues brand loyalty, that's why branded tokens are really important. You can build a long-lasting business that plays that has a central role in the decentralized internet.
Wonderful.
Central role in decentralized.
The central role in decentralized internet. Bam.
I was going to say, almost as good as OST is Love.
Yeah.
No, that's good.
Continuing on the decentralized kind of concept, and we covered this a little bit in the product roadmap, but I think there's still a lot of questions, and we can always go into more depth, is around how we use sidechains and how we get that to be really effective.
That's my cue to get water.
And so we have this coming through the subreddit from Kid Krakow. We know that OST runs on the Peak blockchain, which is secured through proof of work. The way you scale is by using sidechain mechanisms, but are these sidechains decentralized? Do they live on a network, or are they not on hosting servers? So if you can give a little bit more depth into this, I know you shared a little bit about this before.
So I mean, it's absolutely been crucial to first understand what do we mean with decentralized, because that's also often not clearly defined, and now I'm running myself into a bind.
All right, keep going. It's a YouTube A&A. You can say, you can just riff it.
So that has absolutely always been important, right? So one question why we actually, or one part of the answer why we actually started looking into what we call sidechains, but the understanding of it actually changes a bit once we look deeper into what Mosaic really does. Let's get onto that later. Is that it helps with data availability. So it's very important that that if you are starting to siphon off some of the data away from Ethereum mainnet to get to that scalability, that other data is still available, so that anyone can start from Genesis, for that subset of transactions and validated its own way. So in that sense, yes, it is decentralized because it's even decentralizing away from Ethereum mainnet. And so then it splits into two questions, right? And so remember that with Mosaic, we're building a layer 2 network and protocol that where layer 1 of those utility chains actually is hosted by a set of companies, presumably, and then maybe the foundation, maybe other partners that want to join, but it's of interest to the end user of the application that is a highly performant network. But it is equally of interest to the end user that those parties who are just providing that availability cannot determine the outcome of what happens on the sidechain. And that's why Mosaic is an open network of open sealers that is defined on Ethereum mainnet. And it's really important to emphasize and to build that understanding that what Mosaic does is it brings all the definitions and all the value and all the economic finality back to Ethereum mainnet. But we optimize it in such a way that is asynchronous and that the burden of the computation is actually done on these auxiliary systems that are more performant. And so in that way, we leverage the security of proof of work Ethereum to secure these auxiliary systems. And it's that open set of sealers that really defines what is finalized on those auxiliary systems. Because remember, in order to get to the actual value, we call it a value chain and a utility chain. To get to the actual value, you need to unstake it. And in order to unstake it, you need to have a majority vote of what was true on Ethereum mainnet to prove against that state root that indeed you had those tokens and you're willing to unstake them and walk away with the value. So we, in that sense, I sort of, maybe by construction, I've given my definition of decentralized here. And I'll,
no, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but a simple way to think about that is, if you've earned, let's say, 100 unsplash tokens, that earning of those tokens or transfer those tokens to you happen on the sidechain, which is in itself an open system. But the way that it's proven that you've earned that equivalent amount of OST is that if you go to unstake it, that the transaction that actually gives you the OST, or if someone gives you something else instead that's worth the same, that the transaction that makes it happen, that is happening on Ethereum and in a decentralized manner.
Yeah, and important here also, when you say proven, is also the immutability of what has happened on those auxiliary systems, right? So all the votes, all the blocks that have been proposed, they're all provable against what those open sealers from Mosaic are publishing on Ethereum mainnet. And so any fraud or any attempt to revert what was finalized can be proven, and the stake of those companies, whomever is proposing the blocks, whoever was trying to maybe defraud the Mosaic system as well, it's a POS system, those proofs can be presented and the stake can be taken away. So in that sense, the immutability is also preserved for those.
So you go back to the airline example, on the OST system, there's absolutely no way that the airline or whatever company is could say your earned tokens expire in 6 months or a year, or change the conversion rate from 1 buys you 2 to 1 buys gets you half. That you earned it, you own it, and there's proof behind it.
Perfect. Kind of a corollary to this is maybe the token economies and how do those scale? I'm seeing this on YouTube in terms of one of the chats, in terms of understanding minting and specifically the ratios. So if there's a company that has kind of already created their branded token and then OST ratio, and that's been set, how do you continue growing your economy with your user base? Because it's only a finite amount that you've already kind of staked at the beginning. So can you explain a little bit more about that process of once things grow, what happens?
So there's a couple of things embedded in this question. So the first is the way that we set up, the simple way to think about it is that when you want to mint your branded tokens, you take OST and then you create a equivalent amount of your branded token. And it could be 1-to-1, or you could set a conversion rate at the beginning of 1 to 100. To put a very simple example, let's say you start off with $1,000 worth of OST, and you want to turn that into, let's say, not 1,000 of your token. Let's say you want to turn it into 10,000. Right? So you basically take it into a smaller denomination. Then the way we set this up is that you don't need to, from the beginning, to, let's say, if you have a large company, you don't need, or a large user base, you don't from the very beginning need to mint millions and millions of dollars worth of tokens or of OST worth of tokens. You can basically, we want it to be that you can kind of grow as you grow, right? And so of course, and so the intent is that as your economy is growing and as your users are placing more demand, that they want more of your tokens, and so either they're buying more of your tokens or they're earning more of your tokens. There's always someone who's paying for the token. Either if it's a incentive or a reward, then typically you, the company, are paying for it. If it's for a service, then the end user or the business that you're transacting with is paying for it and then spending it to use for it. But then you basically go back and you mint more of your token. You basically stake more OST and mint more of your tokens at that same conversion rate. And so the question we often get is, well, what happens if the price of OST goes up? And the answer there is very similar to, well, what happened when the price of Bitcoin went from, $100 to $10,000 or $7,000 is, you need to buy fewer Bitcoin in order to create the same amount of value. And so in this case, you need to stake less OST in order to create the same value worth of your token. And so you can, as long as you're setting prices within your economy, the way that you want to set them. So let's say if your users want to, most people today still pay their rent in their local fiat. So they might, let's say if they're earning tokens on Unsplash, they probably want to set the amount of Unsplash tokens that they're charging for an action in USD and have it automatically convert to the number of Unsplash. And so that automatic conversion, we call it a price oracle, that happens. And that regardless of what's happening to the price of OST going up or down, and that helps ensure that no matter whether OST is worth $1 or $10,000 or $1 million per one OST, that you don't need to have you don't have to mint more and more of your tokens. Your users are still charging how much they want to charge for the service, and that's kind of driving in your economy.
Sure.
There's these token economics. It's hard to do in A right now because it's like we actually go through this. It's actually a real specialization that our team is developing. We call it blockchain strategy consulting, and we have a team of people at OST, and all they do is they spend all day modeling token economies with companies, and it's what part of the value add that we provide. And we go into our partner companies and companies that we're talking to, and we do these workshops, and they typically come down to this kind of earn, buy, spend workshops where you kind of say, all right, what are the levers of your business? So what's driving your growth engine? And now let's think about how do we accelerate that, right? So if we could kind of incentivize anything or kind of push any lever within the organization, how would we do that? And all right, now let's think about, who is going to earn the token, who's going to buy the token, and then where they're all going to spend the token and how it all flows together. And that modeling of token economy and how that all interplays together, like that's like the other half of the equation from like get the technology right, but then the technology can be amazing, but if you don't have a kind of a model for your token economy and how this kind of buyer and spend is going to work, it's not going to it doesn't matter because you have to drive the right behavior. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You have to have all three in terms of making the economy run.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of questions on price. So this is maybe not on the actual token economics, but just in terms of OST actual price. So a two-part question. What are we doing in terms of increasing the price, and where can we hopefully have a plan for more exchanges?
Okay, so
what are you doing is called.
Yeah, well, so a couple of things. First, I think those who've been around our project for a while know that we don't comment about token price. And we've tried to run from the very beginning a very professional project where OST is all about the technology, all about the solution, and ultimately all about customer success. And we think we're, being this essential fabric of the decentralized internet is a very massive, big vision. And that's, that will create lots of value over time. And that's what we're focused on. When people speculate on kind of token prices and say, well, what about these other guys who are kind of out there hyping their coin left and right? I always point to folks that, if you looked at the internet in 1996, 1997, 1998, 1999, 2000, 5 years of like the first 5 years of the internet, 99% of the companies that were hyped like crazy back then do not exist today. And these are early days in blockchain. And what we focused on is we are building real solutions. And token price for OST is just it's not a focus of us, but our focus is build something that customers want to use. And those customers will then go need to buy OST in order to stake against minting the branded tokens. And that's the market forces in effect there. And OST needs to have a value. That's why it's listed on exchanges. It's the only reason why it's listed on exchanges, because it needs to have a market value so that customers can go and buy it and have a value assigned to it, so that when you earn that Unsplash token, because of Mosaic and everything that goes into it, how much that's worth when you want to exit it and take it out of the system and put that money in your pocket or in your crypto wallet, whatever it is. Now, in terms of exchanges, we also want to make sure that companies and persons who are working on OST, the developer teams around the world, have great places to buy OST. When we move to mainnet, for instance, the developers will need to acquire OST to build their proof of concepts. And we're committed to making sure that OST is available to purchase in the best places possible, in the most popular exchanges in the world.
All right. Actually, a question back towards the product roadmap that's kind of come in. And it was one more about kind of the challenges along the way. So we kind of stepped through, here's what we're working on, but what are some of the challenges in terms of, actually being able to execute against the product roadmap? And, if there was one bold way to achieve production faster, what would that kind of way be?
Software is done when software is done. So it's not about faster. It's about getting it right. Yeah. And people like the last thing you want to do is when you're processing transactions at millions and billions of transactions, the last thing you want to do is just go fast for the sake of going fast. So I think people are like, anyone saying go faster, go right. Like let's get this stuff right. And this is hard stuff to solve. I mean, this is like basically rebuilding the banking system in a decentralized fashion. I mean, so I don't know if you want to add anything to it. Unbanking the bank. Unbanking the bank. And what we mean by that, we actually say this a lot internally. Unbanking the bank is differently. So some people often talk about banking the unbanked. So it's like, how do you help people who've never had a bank account before, kind of handle money? We talk about
people who have bank accounts.
Yeah, help unbanking the bank, right? So start off with people who do have bank accounts and helping them get out of the banking system and into more customer-friendly, user-friendly, and more fair and honest systems. And if you talk about, let's say whether we're doing with Unsplash or with other companies, that is all about unbanking the bank.
And so what is really challenging to execute against the roadmap is, and I've hinted at this before, really understanding the problem, right? Because the technology is young, but we really have core technological pieces that are being proven out, like Ethereum, for example, it needs continuous work, but we have those building pieces that we can work with, but we really have to understand what is the problem set that needs to be solved in order to get to millions and billions of users. And so that question is just a continuous question of, are we solving for the right problem, the sufficient set of problems, and are we doing the best solution now and towards the future? And so I think that continuous interplay with the roadmap, which is also sort of why we haven't been super proactive on putting out this long-term vision. We're getting a lot of clarity over the next year and a half. And so we'll start putting that out. But at the same time, we have that continuous question of making sure we're building the right product. And like Jason said, we don't want to be building in a vacuum. So working with the partner companies is absolutely crucial.
I mean, I think we have a 10-year vision, and rather than throwing out a 10-year vision, we focus more on what are we building in the next year or two and focusing on customer solutions. We will pivot a bit more towards talking about that longer-term vision, but still our focus is on customer success.
Absolutely.
You just mentioned kind of working with partners, as we discussed before, as one of the key pillars for us to kind of grow. Has it been tough for us to kind of get big partners to join and be a part of our ecosystem? Because there's obviously a lot of concern about trying to join a specific ecosystem versus doing their ICO. So, how have we seen bigger partners become excited around minting protocol for OST?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing that pretty much every company in the world is considering blockchain right now, and we're there in the conversation. And when companies get to the point where when they think about tokenizing their business, and they look at the options to either tokenize with someone else's token, so to use some other brand's token as a reward or loyalty token, or to have their own branded token, we are, by far and away the leader and perhaps the only game in town when it comes to kind of a long-term viable solution for branded tokens. And that's where we're seeing tons of success and interest from companies. And so what our commercial team is doing now is, basically leaning into those opportunities and working on them. And, so there's this process where, if your company has thought about tokenization, and you've thought about, the benefits of tokenization, and you've thought about the benefits of having your own branded token versus using someone else, then OST is there. And that's really where we're focused right now. And we're having great success at it. And, later on, we'll go more towards companies that haven't even thought about tokenizing yet and trying to sell them on the benefits of tokenization. There's enough companies right now that we're talking to who are just like, hey, we want to get on board with having our own token. And that's where we come into the equation. And then we've also seen that a lot of companies until recently thought they could ICO and have started to realize that it's a lot harder, a lot more expensive, a distraction from their core business than they first realized. And also the regulatory environment is shifting very quickly, and really the environment's not favoring any projects right now that are not at the protocol layer. And if your company has an app and it's looking to tokenize that app or the website, no matter whether it's a small app or an app with millions and billions of users, there's not ICOs happening from a regulatory standpoint for those companies. And that's where we're also seeing a lot of projects that were formerly looking at ICOs that are turning to us and saying, we want to work with you, OST, because we like the way your solution is laid out. And then just the last piece to add to that is we've also built into our solution, and we'll publish information about this in more detail, but we built, if a company, basically a way for companies to launch a branded token on OST, and then if they do build a token economy in a successful manner and they have a lot of liquidity in it and it seems like it's working, if we can figure out the legal and regulatory side of it, we can support that from a technical standpoint, then doing an ICO out of OST to the benefit of both them and to OST and the OST ecosystem. And Perfect. So we'll publish a spec on that soon as well.
I was going to say that was the follow-up question, but if you want
I want to make the last point you made, and then and also in conversations when we talk through how we're building the technology, how we're building out the technology stack and the roadmap, well, what really also resonates is that we set out the technology very strongly. We want to build modular components, right? And so what I mean with that is that the reason we chose Ethereum to build upon is for its by far biggest and best, in my opinion, but developer community. And so by building modular logical pieces that are that add value to the bigger ecosystem, we gain that group velocity, right? So by not trying to build a technology lock-in solution, but really working with the community and trying to figure out what the pieces are that the whole community can use, we want to capture that group velocity. And when people understand that, it gives them a larger vote of confidence that, one, they're not locked into our technical solution, and that brings also to the point of being able to IPO after you've proven ICO after you've proven your token economy, but also that we don't that we can grow as this technology really fast evolves. That we don't have all the answers, but we try to really focus on core pieces that are required, currently don't get the attention that is needed to scale.
Yeah, Ben and I were in a meeting, just a couple weeks ago with a company that has, millions of users, billions of transactions happening every day, and they asked us this question, said, look, if we launched our own brand token, and then if we figured out a way to then sell some of the token to shareholder, to investors, whatever it is down the road, to sort of do a ICO in reverse later, could we support that, and would we support it? And our answer is plainly yes. I mean, it is We don't believe in locking anyone into our technology. We believe in if your economy is successful, then we'll all be successful, and we'll publish to everyone kind of a spec behind how we anticipate that working to the benefit of the community as well.
I mean, we also believe in building the best technology, of course.
Of course.
That's how people will want to see.
Great. A few more questions. We are running over an hour, but I feel like we've got good.
This is fun. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Been a lot of questions on marketing and promotion.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but thoughts on kind of promotion, marketing.
She just got here. Come on, people.
But specifically with all the hype in the news, there's a lot going on in blockchain, and a lot of people trying to publicize their projects. So what are our thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say it again. Our thoughts are build great technology, build great solutions, and tell the stories behind that. And that's what we're going to be doing. And I said the other day that I kind of feel like in some ways we're kind of a sleeping giant that's about to be woken up, and the waking up is in reference to, it's not that we're starting to scream about OST, it's that there's actual real developers, real companies who are actually building real product on OST, and that goes to the next phase and the next phase to them actually having successful economies through OST, and that's the story that we want to tell. And we will also be telling the story more and more about the bigger, broader vision of where we're heading with OST. And for those who say, "Where's the marketing? Where's the marketing?" We will market the technology and the solutions, but do not expect us to be the hype machine around the token price. That's just not what we're about.
Cool. And the flip side to that is kind of the overall commercial strategy. So have we developed a partnership or biz dev strategy yet?
Yes.
Can we share more details? This came from Justin Cathcart earlier.
I mean, the answer is yes. And so we have built out a commercial team, as I said, with offices around the world right now in North America, in New York, in Hong Kong for the Asian market, in India, and in Berlin. And our strategy first is we do have a focus point on like, we're looking for progressive companies that are typically in the Series B kind of phase from a VC standpoint speaking. So typically means they've already raised a Series A, they either raised a Series B, or they're in that kind of, they've already established product market fit, and it's more about how do they scale their business. Many of these businesses tend to be in the realm of they have a certain scale, and they don't want to be investing all their money on Facebook ads or on Google ads, and they want to figure out ways to instead invest in their users and to grow organically and to build more engagement. And they're looking at blockchain as ways to build better systems and better relationships with their users, and also to push the power kind of back to their users, so to prove a better customer experience. That's our sweet spot. We look for companies and projects like that. But then we're also working with development teams around the world to just build stuff from scratch. And our approach with this is invest in teams, good ideas, and give them the tools to help us all figure out how to do this together.
Cool. Another question that came in from the YouTube chat was, are we planning on building with Cardano?
I don't know of any plans at this moment to build Cardano.
So at this moment, no, because we have a lot of work cut out already. But again, the important, and I've hinted at this, one crucial design constraint when drawing out Mosaic was really that it was agnostic to the systems it was running on. And so right now we implemented on Ethereum. But it's a logical unit that you can deploy multiple times, and you can also deploy it from Cardano onto this periphery of auxiliary systems that we're building out. So we can take value from Ethereum and work with it on Mosaic, but we can then also, when that becomes appropriate or demand, that we take value that is defined on Cardano and extend Cardano into the same Mosaic network. And so Mosaic is really, that's also part of where the name comes from. It's really about composing rather than sharding. It takes the existing blockchain systems as pillars to build on, and then it composes and adds capacity to them, leveraging their security properties. And so it is on the roadmap. It's on the longer vision, but right now we're focused on Ethereum.
Yeah. And I said I mentioned before around exchanging brand tokens, and it's not exactly this exact question, but it's in terms of interoperability is something that we very much look out towards and value. And we really do believe that in the long term, that if you earn a branded token, you earn an Unsplash token, that you should be able to exchange that for any other piece of value that someone else is willing to exchange with you. Whether that is on a OST chain, whether that is on Ethereum blockchain, whether that is on any other type of blockchain, or even if it's for something else that's maybe not even on a chain yet, that there should be ability to exchange that, and that's going to be really interesting out in the future.
Sure. And just to kind of go a little bit deeper on that, we are kind of thinking about that from a long-term vision, but in the short term, we're not thinking about any other kind of major change. So there was questions around, have you been thinking about EOS in terms of switching there? What is our thought process?
We're definitely committed to Ethereum. It's our bedrock that we build on and want to contribute back to.
Mm-hmm.
But again, right, Mosaic is about composing different types of chains asynchronously. And so if you use the word composing, then yes, if EOS is interesting, we can compose that into Mosaic. Or people can do it as well. I mean, maybe not right now because we need to keep building it, but once it exists, it's up to anyone to build the implementation for EOS, for Cardano, to just grow that network. Right?
And maybe it's not the exact right analogy, but I think people maybe they think about this in kind of like the platform wars that used to be like, whether are you on Microsoft or are you on Linux or are you on Mac OS? And this is very different, this whole new kind of arena, and we're building to be interoperable from the beginning.
I mean, blockchain at its core is there's many ways you can define it, but one definition that I also wield from time to time is it's a protocol for consensus, right? So Mosaic is a protocol for consensus across protocols for consensus. So there's no reason why we should switch from either to another, because we can compose them into a bigger mesh network. So.
Great. I'll do a bit of a switch.
Okay.
We've spent a lot of our time obviously talking about OST and mainly Kit and what we're developing there. But we do have another product, KYC, that there's been a lot of questions going on from the community. So, have we sold KYC to the outside companies? What's been the fit in our product portfolio? What are some of the features? And what are we doing?
Let me explain a couple of things that Adiela just kind of alluded to. So, our product is OST. And the components of OST, the stack of OST has OpenST protocol, Mosaic. There'll be other names of kind of other developments after Mosaic with some of the things that we alluded to. There's APIs, and then there's also token rules, token engines, and then there's also things that kind of more the application layer. All these kind of go into the stack, and we see that an important part of the stack in the future. Actually, not too long future, but right now, actually, when we see an important part of the stack, whenever someone is doing a branded token exchange. Or basically someone is acquiring branded tokens or they are cashing out of branded tokens, that some form of identity and KYC will need to be involved. And we built a KYC engine during our ICO 6 months ago. So at the time, we looked out at the market at various KYC service providers. And we looked at what was on the market and we said, well, we thought we could build something better from a user experience standpoint for the people participating in our ICO. And that involved both the KYC of the customers as well as the whitelisting on a blockchain of the Ethereum address. And we built that with the technology partner called Synopsys Solutions of Singapore. They provide some of the underpinning, and then we built kind of layers on top of that. And what we've done is, since we know that we're going to be building KYC and identity into our overall stack, is rather than scrapping the work that we've done for our ICO, we decided to build a whole roadmap of kind of development on that. And then we also started selling OST KYC as a standalone product, while we're also building elements of OST KYC that ultimately will be integrated fully into the OST stack. And so, to make clear, we're not doing KYC as a separate product line or separate company just to have another product. It is because ultimately it will become part of the overall OST stack. We have sold OST KYC, and we'll be sharing more details in the future. Our OST KYC customers, they run their own ICOs, they run their own KYC practices, and it's up to them as to whether they want to share the details of it. But we'll be telling more about OST KYC, both as the current iteration as a standalone product, as well as the future integration into the OST product suite in the future.
And it's important to mention that we charge OST KYC only
only
in
OST. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
All right. I think there was kind of one more question that I saw for this.
What's the price?
Should we go for that for the third time around for the price? No, that's actually an easy one. I think obviously we talk a lot about trying to give as much access as possible for people to develop on top of OST. And right now we've been releasing steadily on the SDKs and APIs that we have. What are some of the new ones that we have kind of planned in the future so that we can kind of give a heads up in terms of new SDKs and APIs?
Ben can speak to kind of developments and APIs and SDKs, but I'd say one of the things that that we want to do is right now, if you go onto OST.com, you can't just write there, sign up, and any developer can't just sign up and stake and mint. And that's something we want to have a sandbox up like ASAP, so that anyone can just start going through that experience. You go through the experience now on testnet, but then doing it on mainnet when we're there. You can go to our dev resources and access the APIs right away, but you still need to contact us in order to get whitelisted into the sandbox. And we want to have a sandbox up as soon as possible. Something we're talking about every day here now, so that anyone can just go on OST.com and go through that experience and learn firsthand and experience it firsthand. We did, what was it, which of the SDK did we launch yesterday? Was it PHP?
JavaScript before that.
Yeah. JavaScript before.
Really SDK.
Yeah. Wallet, Ledger,
API is
coming.
A significant part of them as well.
Yeah, look, so we have like a large part of our team just working on kind of API layer, and we think that for most companies that use OST, they're using it through the API. The SaaS dashboards are more for kind of the business management side of it, but the heavy usage, the app integration is through the APIs, and so I would say we're very much like we're a protocol API company in a very large way.
So, and it's important to emphasize this, right? Like one of the design constraints for OST as a whole, it's called Open Simple Token. And so we want to make it simple for users, as I hinted at, to almost unknowingly get their hands on crypto, but it also has to be simple for developers. And because a lot of developers are learning about blockchain technology, but first of all, it distracts from these companies to build that expertise in-house. And so part of that question of how do you build a bridge between Web 2 or existing web application developers and crypto is making it simple for them to integrate as well. And so we'll be iterating still on the APIs to really get them user-friendly and find that sweet spot. But it was a core design constraint, and not an easy one to solve for that matter. How do you actually preserve the cryptographic features that the user can control the tokens uniquely, but allow the developer to just integrate a REST API or JSON RPC maybe in the future? But like that question was actually really hard, and I'll not go into the details, but the token holder contracts play a crucial role there in order to enable just a simple API interface for developers to be isolated from all the technology challenges about economic finality and etc. And get a response back from the API that they can just work with. That was actually one of the big technological challenges that we also had in this puzzle of how do you build for the right problems, right?
So like hopefully everyone's learned some more about OST today than they knew it before. And hopefully also gain some appreciation for the enormity of the vision and what we're trying to build here. To kind of wrap it up and kind of sum it up, I think we're trying to solve 5 very hard problems for customers and towards this big massive vision. And as Ben said, improving the usability of blockchain is a big challenge. Scalability is another one. Making sure that you have integration between existing apps and services. making sure that there's trust that all the transactions are actually real and going to go through. And then also providing liquidity of branded tokens once they're kind of acquired by people. And so these 5 problems to solve, and there's many more, but like these are big things to solve, and we appreciate your support as we work towards this big vision for many years to come. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone for joining us. This has been an amazing experience. Hopefully we'll do more of these in the future. Take care and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Yeah, this time.